Hey everybody, this is James Hernandez. How you all doing? And hope you're all doing good. Hope you guys had a great weekend. And welcome to another movie review. And since some summer is coming way closer, I thought it would be another good idea to talk about another shark movie. And I'm going to be talking about a sequel to one of the greatest summer blockbuster films of all time, judging by the shirt that I'm wearing. That's right. But this time I'm going to be reviewing the second film, and that is Jaws 2. So, Jaws 2 is the second entry of the Jaws franchise, is a sequel to the first movie, and this movie is directed by Jeanette Swartz. Hope I'm saying his name right. And this movie came out in 1978, so pretty much like 3 years or 4.5 years after the first one. So let's talk about the story of this movie. So the movie first begins like with the scuba divers that are swimming in the ocean, and they discovered a sinking orca ship that was sinking by the last shark from the last movie. And they're pretty much like looking at the orca ship, and they were like taking pictures. And then all of a sudden, like another shark came, and they basically just like ate them, the scuba divers, and then that's like how the opening is. Not as terrifying as the opening from the last movie, but it's pretty much like kind of intense. And then we got to see Chief Brody on Amity Island. And then while that's going on, like the shark was like targeting towards the teenagers who were sailing in the waters of Amity Island. And then it's up to Chief Brody to stop the shark and save all the teenagers, including his two sons, Michael and Sean. But this time he's alone because Matt Hooper is like out doing a research facility while Quint is, well, dead. So when it comes to the Jaws sequels, no one really talks about Jaws 2 that much. They mostly would talk about Jaws 3 or Jaws Revenge, not because that they were better movies, but because how iconically bad they were. But when they look at Jaws 2, they just said, it's just kind of forgettable. So much like with the first movie, I first saw this movie when my father and I went to Blockbuster when I came home from school. And usually, like when it comes to the movies that I kept borrowing most of the time when I went to Blockbuster with my father, was usually the Jaws movies. And when I heard that there's like some Jaws sequels, I wanted to check them out. And Jaws 2 was also one of them. It was no exception. So, and then I got this DVD. I think it was for my birthday years ago. I don't remember how old I was, but I think I was still young. But anyway, so now that I watched Jaws 2, I had to say that it's not as bad as many people would say it is. I think it's a decent sequel, but I cannot say it's as good as the first one because the first Jaws movie is, of course, a classic. And this one is actually, like I said, it's decent enough. It's nowhere near as bad as like the follow-ups or even other shark movies that were iconically bad or even just forgettable. But this movie, I think it was decent. So, but let's talk about the stuff that I really like about this movie. So let's start with one character that is the best, and that is Chief Brody. Once again, is played by Roy Scheider. Now, much like with the first movie, you really do root for Chief Brody to go after the shark, and no one actually believes him, and they just pretty much like they just like ignore Chief Brody's words about like there's another shark, like it's just like attacking people on in the waters of Amity Island, and then he has to do all by himself even when he got fired during like the panic on the public beach when he saw when he thought that that there was a shark coming to the beach, when he saw the people are just like enjoying the water, and then it turns out that it was just bluefish when he was like shooting like poison bullets from his gun. But then like as soon as he got fired, he woke up in the morning, and then he realizes that his sons went sailing. And not only that, but like the rest of the teenagers were heading to like the lighthouse, and then they went to the cable construction, which is the island, and they were all being targeted by the sharks. So it's up to Chief Brody to save them and stop the shark once and for all, like how he did in the first movie. But this time, unlike the first movie, he's alone. Now, so basically, despite that Roy Scheider does not want to be in this movie, he still does a really good job with his performance. And you really do feel sorry for him, and you actually root for him to save Amity Island against the shark. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about Chief Brody's character, because like Roy Scheider did not agree to be in the sequel of the movie because he felt like people want to see the shark more than him, which is kind of a shame because Chief Brody is actually one of the most iconic characters from the first movie, along with Quint and Matt Hooper. Now, as for the second thing I really like about this movie is that John Williams' score, while it's not as like as iconic or as good as the first movie, but the scenes like where you get to see the shark coming after when it goes the dum dum is actually pretty cool, just like the first movie. And there was also some other music scores that I thought it was good, like when the teenagers were like sailing like in the morning, and and they're just like hanging out, they're just having a great time, and then the music that plays during the sequence is actually really good. And it's very nice. It's nothing too amazing, and I thought the teenagers were okay, but they're not super interesting. But the one time that the teenagers do hang out with each other, it feels very genuine in my opinion. It's not like with the teenage characters that you would see like in other slasher flicks like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or even like Halloween, where they're just a bunch of unlikable idiots, or a bunch of, I'm sorry I'm gonna say this, but they're a bunch of unlikable douchebags that you just want the killer just to kill them. But the teenagers in this movie, they actually. So yeah, about the teenagers in this movie, like unlike the teenagers from every slasher flick, they actually are very genuine, and they actually are good friends. Okay, I'm not saying the teenagers are like super interesting or having like a really big development, because usually the teenage characters are just teens and you really don't care much about them. But at the same time, you look at them and you go, and it makes you go like, yeah, I want to root for, I want to like make friends with these people. I want to hang out with them. And then when they were like being like stuck in the middle of the ocean, it's not like with the other shark movies where they will just like blame on each other, be like, "Oh, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that." No, it's like they tend to like stick together. They're gonna make sure that everything is okay, and then they had to wait for help, like while like the shark is trying to catch them. And then, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I pretty much like about this movie. Is I thought Roy Scheider's performance is still good, despite that he doesn't want to be in it. And the music score was pretty good. And the scenes, like, with the teenagers are just, like, hanging out with each other, being really good friends is nice. Now I'm going to talk about the stuff that I really don't like about this movie, because I know a lot of people said there's like a lot of like things that just kind of make the second Jaws movie not as good as the first one. So I'll get into that right now. So the first thing I did not like about this movie is that most of the time the shark deaths, it's really not as violent as, or as like as terrifying as the shark attacks from the first movie. There is actually like two shark attacks where I was just like, oh crap. One is where there was a couple in this movie named Tina and Ed, and while the rest of the teenagers were off sailing, they were on their own. They were on their boat. Sorry for lip syncing. They were on their own boat to have some alone time, and then the shark just hits the boat, and then it causes Ed to fell out of the boat and into the water, and then the shark was like pulling the boat with Tina in it, and just like 15 like feet or 20 feet away from Ed. And then Ed tries to swim up to the boat, but then like the shark was like swimming up faster, because like the shark is like the fast swimmer. And then the shark was attacking Ed, and then it drags Ed and just actually makes him like hit towards the boat like that. And then the shark ate him. And I was like, "Oh, he's dead." And now the other shark attack where I was just like, oh, and the other shark attack that scares me, okay, it didn't really scare me, but it just makes me go like, oh snap, was because is that the scene like where this teenage girl named Marge is saving Michael's uh brother, excuse me, sorry. Yeah, brother, and yeah, named Sean. And then Sean gets up on the boat, and then Marge sacrifices herself to save him because like the shark comes up and then the shark grabs Marge and eats her right in front of Sean. And then I heard the bone crushing sound and I was just like, oh snap, she's dead now. And the other death I actually like is where it's not really from the shark, but it was actually from this woman that tries to fend off against the shark. It was right after the shark eats the water skier, and then the shark actually collides with the boat. And then this woman was trying to defend herself from the shark just by like shooting a flare gun at the shark after when she just like carried like this oil thing, and she didn't know that the oil spilled on her. And then she actually shoots the flare gun at the shark, and then the shark got like a burnt skin like on his face. And then the shark survived, but as for the girl, not so much because like it kills her instantly when the boat extremely blew up. And I was like, okay, this is actually kind of a Michael Bay territory way before we were introduced to Michael Bay in his crappy Transformers movies or other movies he made that was also crap. So yeah, like I felt like so with the exception like three like deaths in this movie, the shark attacks just feels like very edited, and it's definitely not as graphic or as intense as the shark deaths from the first movie. So I can't say that the shark attacks were like that great because it just feels like it's completely edited. It just feels too safe at times. And yeah, it's really ridiculous. And most of the time, the characters in this movie, like, you don't really care much about any of the characters except for Chief Brody. And the other characters are just pretty much there. Like, I would say that Lorraine Gary's performance as Ellen Brody, there's nothing too new about her. She is literally just there. Same thing with Larry Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, which he is still like the same character from the first movie. And it pretty much like rehashes the first one where he says, oh, there's no fin, there's no shark attacks, it's nothing but a boating accident. And it just comes off as like the movie just kind of like rehashes the first one, you know? And it just comes off as like, yeah, you're really not it's not really like doing something brand new about it, other than it's just being like a teen slasher flick that you would see like in other movies like Halloween, Friday the 13th, or even like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Um, Now, as for the climax of the movie, is where the shark was going after the teenagers when they're heading to Cable Junction while Chief Brody finally arrives to rescue them. And then, like, the shark actually collides, like, with one of the boats, and then, like, the teenagers fell in the water and they managed to swim up to the island. That's except for Sean Brody and Mike's supposed love interest named Jackie, who has been like screaming like throughout the whole like climax of the movie, and then people just like give her so much crap by saying that she's probably the worst character in the movie, which I really don't understand. Like, yeah, I understand that her screaming can gets really annoying like during the climax of this movie, but but I felt like people just want to. I heard people were just saying, "Oh, she screams too much." Someone just like push her in the water and have the shark eat her, and I'm like, no, I mean, like, why you guys are hating her? Like, she doesn't do anything harmful or offensive in this movie. Like, why you guys are like bashing on the character that doesn't do anything other than just like scream and freaked out? Like, yeah, I know, like the screaming can get annoying, but you know, I really don't want this character to die. You know, you don't want to like push her in the water and have the shark eat her because like that's cruel. So anyway, so Chief Brody actually finds out a way to defeat the shark and save everybody. Is where he finds a power line that that has volts of electricity, and then so he uses an oar to like to smack it like this to get the shark's attention because during in the middle act of the movie, it was confirmed that that the sharks are attracted by sound, not just blood, but also attracted by sound. So he uses that opportunity to get the shark's attention, and then as soon as the shark swims up to Chief Brody, the shark actually opened his jaws and actually bites the power line, and the shark actually got electrocuted. And then I was like, oh my god. And then like after the shark actually dies from getting electrocuted, his whole body was on fire, and then the shark actually drowns. So yeah, like I actually do appreciate the second Jaws movie to have like a different climax. Well, it's definitely not as iconic or as memorable as the climax from the first movie, but I would give it credit that it is pretty different and it does wants to do something like realistic, I guess. That's what, according to some people that did the reviews for this movie. So I had to agree that I think it's pretty realistic of the way how they kill off the shark, although it's not as iconic or basically as well remembered as the first movie. And then the movie ends like after the shark is defeated, Chief Brody is reunited with his second son, and then he saves the teenagers, and then they all make their way home off screen, and that's the end of the film. So my overall thoughts on Jaws 2, I would say it's actually a decent sequel. I can't say it's a masterpiece or anything, but it's definitely not a bad movie at all. I do think there's some good stuff in it, but when there's stuff that is bad, I just think it's not offensively bad, but there's just some stuff where I was just like, this really drags on, and then like making this movie more like a slasher, like a teen slasher movie, just kind of feels unnecessary. Because the first Jaws movie is not a teen slasher flick. It really is not. Because the main characters in the first movie are not teenagers. It's three adults that has to hunt down the shark to save Amity. So so yeah, like there's still good things about this movie. Like Roy Scheider still does a really good job with his performance. The music I still think is very nice. Well, not as iconic as the first one, and the climax was also pretty fun as well. So my recommendation for this movie is that if you really want to watch like a movie sequel where it's nowhere near as good as the original, but it's still solid enough, then I kind of recommend this movie. So, but other than that, I would still say just stick with the first Jaws movie. But if you really want to watch like I said, like a sequel where it's like, okay, it's not as good as the first one, but it's still solid enough and it's a welcoming entry to the series, then I kind of recommend Jaws 2. So yeah, so I think that's all I gotta say about Jaws 2. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give Jaws 2 I think I'll give this movie like a middle average 6 out of 10. Now, it's not a bad movie by any of the stretch of the imagination, but this movie is nowhere near as good as the first one, but it is decent enough, as I will say. So, not a bad movie, but it's definitely not as good as the first one. So, like I said, and I'm going to say it once again, if you want to watch like a sequel where it's not as good as the first one, but it's still entertaining, then I would kind of recommend Jaws 2. But if you really want to watch like a standalone movie where it doesn't really need a sequel, it just needs a standalone movie itself, then I would just stick with the first one. So folks, that is my review for Jaws 2. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Have you guys seen Jaws 2 when you first watched it? What did you guys think of it? Did you guys think it's a superior sequel? Or do you think it's just like a very forgettable sequel that does not live up to the first one? Or it becomes like very dated and all of that? It's just forgettable? Comment below. Let me know. And also, in case if you guys are new here, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and then turn on the notifications when I make future videos. And stay tuned that I'm going to make 2 more movie reviews, and then I got some other videos coming in your way, so stay tuned for those. And yeah, that's all I got to say for today, so hope you guys enjoy my review for Jaws 2, and I'll see you guys next time, all right? Take care.